The journey for me definitely has not been a straight and narrow one. It's one where I was a user of the tools, but was not working directly in the space. So a lot of my background has been working in different nonprofits, and then I made my way into big tech in 2018, which has what brought me out here to the Bay Area. And I was working at Google for a couple of years, more in the ed tech space. So working with edtech developers that were integrating with Chromebooks and Workspace
Mhm.
for K-12 and higher ed, which was really exciting. But as a user, like I really wanted to work more, in accessibility, work directly with the tools and help people better understand the tools. And so at Google, I started showing some of my colleagues like the tools I was using on Chromebooks and also on Mac. And they connected me with some of the folks on the accessibility team at Google. And I started kind of partnering with them internally. And that's where I really realized that I could have even more of an impact, I think, as a user in the space.
Right.
And I decided that I wanted to find a way into the space. It wasn't as easy as I hoped
Yeah.
initially. It was hard to find the exact path at Google, and I kind of looked around and decided to do a master's in assistive technology. That was kind of how I got in. A little bit more exposure, and I also started volunteering for nonprofits. I joined a nonprofit down in Southern California where I led access technology work for their community over Zoom. It was kind of
Right.
like during pandemic and was training them over Zoom on how to use different AT tools. And that gave me some experience. And then found an opportunity to join the Lighthouse team about 5 years ago
Right.
here in San Francisco. Started out kind of like took a bit of a step back on the ground level as an AT specialist to
Mhm.
really work directly with people, training them on the tools,
Right.
and was able to build that as a foundation. And so, sometimes when you want to do something, you just have to kind of like find ways to make it happen.
Just get started.
Yeah, even if you have to kind of like take an alternative path or take a
Yep.
step back and
Yep.
just a way to kind of get your foot in the door and think, very much outside of the box. Because finding that direct transfer from like one big tech to the other in accessibility for me, it was a hard thing to do. Uh,
Right. And I come at it from there are so many similarities, but there are also like we diverge in our own paths. Like, uh, I found out that I had a low vision condition much later in life. I thought I had myopia for most of my life, and
mhm,
I'm an incredibly visual thinker.
mhm.
I started building video games, and I was building apps and products. And when I found out in my early 30s that I had a low vision condition, it obviously took me aback.
Yeah.
Really started making me kind of question, because like the thing that I was incredibly good at somehow felt like it was being like taken away from me. And talking to like retinal specialists who tell you that there's really no cure. It's a hard thing to kind of walk
It's
out
really
of.
hard. Yeah.
And But as builders, as people who already have opportunities, I think the best thing for us to do is to kind of like use our put our builder hat on
Mhm.
and kind of like build our way out of this, right? Because if no one can help you, the question is like we have to use our own skills and the skills of the community and kind of the empathy from the community to kind of go build things that hopefully help us, which is
Yeah.
such a large part of what we're doing today.
Absolutely, and it is interesting. I think when I was young, I was really resistant to help, like from teachers, and also just using the tools, really embracing the tools that were available. And I think
Right.
that's because, as someone also with low vision, I have cone rod dystrophy, which is a rare genetic condition. It causes a lot of light sensitivity and things like that. And so, Zoom tools, magnification, dark mode, all of those kind of things, high contrast, even screen readers, very helpful tools, and some of them were available to me, even though they were like early stage tools, right?
Right.
But I was very resistant to kind of using them and embracing them.
Right.
And I think, but by nature, technology really is assistive to everyone, but
Yep.
there's just kind of this mainstream idea about what technology is and what it can do. And then, but assistive technology is just a different set of tools. And like you
Yep.
said, it can allow you to do the things you want to do in a different way, augmenting that experience,
Yep.
and still making things very much possible and giving people a lot of hope and optimism and
Yep.
um, in the space. Yeah.
And this it's awesome to hear. This is a fantastic segue for us to kind of jump into uh, looking at what is happening in the current landscape,
Mhm.
right? Like both of us are involved. We both started using the tools for our own uses and to kind of overcome our own hurdles. But we also, in different ways, and you especially come from a wealth of experience working with the blind and low vision community.
Mhm.
Can you help explain what's happening in the landscape today as you kind of see it?
Sure, sure. Yeah, there's a lot of challenges I think that the community faces. Right, there are gaps in technologies and tools, in digital accessibility in general, like many well documented and known accessibility issues. With websites and apps and things like that, and also with the current tools that are available. But there are so many hurdles that I think the community faces on the employment front, and some of those things are with the technologies, but often they're really with the way the experience is kind of set up. I think everything from like an interviewing standpoint to kind of a accommodation, requesting accommodations, that interview experience. There's so many barriers along the way that make it hard for someone who has skills, potential, drive, but they have certain challenges, and it really provides a challenge to kind of get through that experience.
Right.
It makes a job market right now that's very hard even that much more challenging. It's
Right.
hard for everyone.
A lot of people don't even realize that some of these things could be a hurdle for people within the blind and low vision community, right? Like you take
Hmm.
so much of it for granted.
Hmm.
The fact that a website is not accessible is a problem that we within the blind and low vision
Hmm.
community face a lot
On a regular daily
on a
basis. Yeah.
regular
Yeah.
basis, and we have our own set of sort of unique challenges.
Mhm.
And so along the way, there are constant kind of barriers.
I think on the employment front, there still is quite an uphill battle. You'll hear a lot of statistics kind of thrown out there, and often when you hear something around 70% unemployment for the blind low vision community, that number may fluctuate year over year, but oftentimes it remains very high. Just in general, compared to sighted peers, right? So on one hand, I mean the challenges are still very much there, but I do think the technology is shifting. I think it's helping, and I think also employers are starting to understand the benefits of hiring people that bring in different perspectives and different backgrounds. We obviously went through this kind of DEI phase, which is in some ways sometimes very kind of controversial, and there's
Mhm.
mixed feelings about it, right? But I think the general sentiment is good to like push for more inclusion, more diversity, as long as it's being done for the right reasons, right?
Right.
Not just to like check a box on some form that's
Right.
out there or to get some funding line, but
Right.
in a real honest way to diversify things. And I think right now we're also seeing that along the lines of neurodiversity as well, like
Mhm.
really folding that in, like not
Mhm.
just thinking about blindness and hearing loss, mobility considerations, but also on the neurodiversity front, and that just because someone thinks differently or has maybe a different kind of like brain chemistry, right?
Yeah.
That can actually be a very positive thing that
Yep.
can bring a different perspective.
Yep.
And I think blindness is kind of similar, that it does open up perspectives on tools, and I think that's something that has shifted, is that companies are looking a lot more closely at the tools that they're either building or onboarding,
Right.
to make sure that they are accessible and therefore also usable by the majority of their workforce.
Right.
And so I think we're seeing that push.
Right.
The challenge in the space, right, is a lot of the push is of course through litigation and things like that. It's still
Right.
very much that kind of carrot and stick approach.
Yeah.
But that sometimes does get things at least moving. But yeah, I think I am seeing a lot more shift, and employers being more willing to accommodate things and
Right.
make the process a little bit easier for people to have more of a fair chance.
Right.
um
I think overall, you know, even like spending time with so many people from our community, no one wants a handoff.
yes.
Everyone wants to feel like they've earned the right to keep the job that has
Yes.
been offered to them.
Hmm.
And I think that is the right angle to approach it, which is how do we help you achieve your maximum potential,
Hmm.
because you may have a certain disability, but as long as your cognitive functions are enabling you to do the job,
Hmm.
if we can provide tools and technologies
Hmm.
and training
Hmm.
in order for you to be able to actually achieve those things, I think that is the win-win for both members of the community as well as society in general, is
Hmm.
because then these members can be an active part of society, actually
Hmm.
moving things forward rather than, uh, sometimes like feeling like they just want to be given some subsidies or
Hmm.
something like that, which uh, is not the general case as I see it. What is
Very
what is
much so.
your experience?
Yeah.
And Lighthouse employs does so many initiatives. You work
Hmm.
with the vocational
Hmm.
rehab. You also have factories where you
Hmm.
employ people from within the community. What are you seeing are internal things from organizations like Lighthouse
Hmm.
that are working, or even with some other organizations without really naming them if we don't have to,
Sure.
in terms of what's not working?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, along those lines, what you were saying, I think, when someone has the motivation to do the job and they also have the skill sets, but they just need to do it in a different way, that should be totally fine. Like employers
Yeah.
should be seeing that as, wow, this person is motivated. And oftentimes, what I see with people in the space is that they're often even more motivated than their
Right.
peers. They have to work even harder,
Right.
to get those opportunities,
Right.
to keep those opportunities,
Right.
and they're really willing to do oftentimes whatever it takes. But they just need the employers to kind of hold up the other end of the bargain and say, hey, we'll accommodate you, we'll get you the tools you need, we'll
Right.
make those accommodations. and
Right.
and oftentimes they point at cost, but in the long run, it's, you could view it as an investment, but it's a investment worth making, in someone that's
Right.
motivated and will do great things for your company.
Right.
But yeah, there are a lot of different pathways, as you mentioned. I think people are definitely not looking for handouts, but they are looking for support, for programs that can help them, find the right resources, the right entry points, and things like the Department of Rehabilitation's. Within California, we work with DOR, and there are similar agencies, across the U.S. in different states.
Right.
And DOR is really focused on employment and also education
Hmm.
as two of the primary pathways. And through that process, by getting a counselor, opening a case, you can get access to different resources that can help you find job opportunities, get placement. They can help you get technology as well.
Right.
But it's definitely not an easy process. It's not a handout. You
Right.
have to fill out a lot of paperwork. You have to really go through the steps. And there are challenges with that. I think navigating that DOR landscape
Right.
can be challenging.
Right.
And that is something we do try to support with, at Lighthouse when community members do reach out for support.
Right.
We try to make sure that they're plugged into DOR, that they understand that landscape, what are the options available.
Right.
Um,
Because it does feel, it's like if you have a vision disability, and in order to get aids, you have to fill a lot of paperwork. It's almost counterintuitive
it
to the
it
problem.
is, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
and
know
a
if it
lot of it's not
helps. And
accessible,
I'm
and
sure there's
yeah.
there's logical reasons to it, but I'm sure there's a lot of uh, steps that can be simplified heavily
Mhm.
in order to make those accommodations. And I think a lot of it also has to stem from the fact that if we can help explain the benefits better,
Mhm.
whether it is to the employers or if it is to DOR, maybe in some other ways,
Mhm.
hopefully then the process becomes easier for them to get the aids to actually show the productivity uptake to make the whole thing worth it.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And this isn't a knock on DOR, but it's definitely something I've seen in the space where sometimes I think there's this pressure to like close a case or just help someone find a job, like any job, just to like kind of satisfy that requirement. And it is helping them, right? But it's not always like a career opportunity, or it's not always like something that
Right.
might be more of a long-term thing with an investment, right? So it is important to have those technology tools available and the pathways, but also like training on how to use assistive technology,
Right.
right? How can you be effective in your job? And
Right.
and so much of that comes down to sitting down with the individual and understanding what are really their goals, like what are they really trying to achieve,
Right.
and oftentimes they might be aiming for something big, but they don't know how to get there, right?
Right.
And DOR can help. It's very good about laying out what are those steps and what are those options. Should you go back to school? Should you
Right.
start in a more entry level role?
Right.
Are there ways to kind of move up, and what are
Right.
those options? And so, for us at Lighthouse, we have used we do have a manufacturing facility where we do make sustainable chemical cleaning products and tissue packets, and a lot of those contracts are through the government, and we do see that as an entry level point. for blind and low vision individuals to kind of gain that work experience, learn how to work on a team, learn the job responsibilities, those transferable skills. But unless someone really wants that as their career, we don't want to feel like people are stuck, on an assembly line, right? It's
Yeah.
really just that foundational skills
Yeah.
that can then transfer to something else.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think people in the community need that step. Like, what is that first step? Because
Right.
for myself as well, and I don't know about your experiences, but as a low vision individual, finding that first opportunity in the workforce was very intimidating and kind
Right.
of scary. Like
Right.
just in general, even like for an internship,
Right.
it was like, what is the right environment? What is the right hiring manager? Are they going to take a chance on me?
Right.
What are they going to place like kind of biases or limitations on
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
That's a scary thing to do, to
Yeah.
take that first step into
Yeah.
employment. So yeah, we've talked a bit about employment and some of the challenges there. And I think I know with this podcast, like we're kind of figuring out our vision, but so much of it is centered around employment for the community, the challenges, but also what are the opportunities, what are the tools, right? And so when we think about tools and the current landscape, we're here in San Francisco in the midst of Silicon Valley.
Yep.
AI is obviously the hot topic, right?
Yep.
AI tools, AI agents. So I'm curious to get your perspective, Shuram, since you're a developer, you're working with AI on a regular basis.
Yeah.
What are you seeing as kind of the landscape of the current tools, but also framing it really through the lens of our community? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges? What are you seeing?
Yeah. I think just taking a step back, we especially over the last many months or the last year, really, since ChatGPT blew up and had its inflection moment, there's
Hmm.
so much buzz around the word AI,
Hmm.
and I think that the buzz is completely justified.
Hmm.
Every day, almost, someone being very close to the innovation. We live in Silicon Valley. I'm building an AI company, as you know.
Hmm.
We're partners with South Park Commons, which is an AI investor, and so
Hmm.
I do have kind of courtside seats to this innovation that is happening, and in so many ways, I do feel like the hype is real.
Hmm. Hmm.
And like any other hype cycle, you may have some froth
Hmm.
or certain things that you have to take with a pinch of salt. But a lot of it is just a question of when, not a question of if.
Hmm. Hmm.
There has been significant improvements in the AI capabilities that directly lead to the possibilities of many aspects of life being productive.
Hmm.
One of the first aspects that it's AI shown incredible value in is coding. And while most people think about coding as this kind of abstracted concept, there are some people sitting in a room and writing code and they are coders. The easiest way to think about coding is that coding when coding gets automated, a lot of automation is possible.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
in the beginning, we used to write this really hard assembly level type code, which very few people on earth understood. Even as a programmer, I used to
And it's not
scratch my
fun to
head.
write.
I used to scratch my head around it. Then it got abstracted to other programming languages like C++ and C Sharp.
Hmm.
Then it got abstracted to simpler languages like JavaScript. And today, the language in which you can write code is just English, or essentially any language that we speak to each other. And if you think about the possibilities of what that has democratized, even a few years ago, it used to cost tens of thousands of dollars for someone to even put a basic website together.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you think about it's like, yeah, what's the point of a website? But if you're somebody who wants to start a small business and you just want to put up a website and get some people to come in and buy a product or a service from you, the cost of entry, even a few years ago, was a lot.
It was,
And
yeah.
for a community where we just spoke about how employment is such a large problem, to expect that people are going to invest thousands of dollars to do something didn't make sense. But
Yeah.
today it absolutely does. And so, in while AI is the way to think about it is uh, 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 just like how we had the industrial revolution, we are having an intelligence revolution.
Hmm. Hmm.
And just like how the industrial revolution allowed us to produce certain goods and services at scale that benefited humanity, the intelligence revolution allows all of us to have an incredibly intelligent, almost companion or co pilot right within our pocket. And it is getting incredibly democratized, which is what I'm super excited about,
Hmm.
which is that a billionaire within Silicon Valley has access to products that are very close to someone who can access these products for free.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that gap being so little is incredibly exciting. You don't have this strange arbitrage of just a few people
Hmm.
having the ability to do something. Like anyone can go in just start on these AI tools for essentially nothing,
Yeah.
and that allows allows everyone to jump on a new bandwagon of how to do things. And
Hmm.
I'm super excited about this in general.
It just reduces the barriers for anyone to enter the space and just makes it so much easier to get started. Like you were saying,
Yep.
just even that MVP phase, first phases can be done so easily. And yeah, there's so much potential. And, there's a lot out there about AI takeover and so many like kind
Yep.
of negative things you hear about AI. And like any technology that's disrupting, there's
Yep.
going to be great uses and there's going to be negative externalities and things
Yep.
that happen. But
Yep.
I think for our community, at least the exposure that I have to it in partnering with you and other developers in the space, I just see so much potential and so many positive things
Yep.
that can reduce further barriers. And the point you made as well, like it's a tool like anything else. It doesn't solve all your problems. Like we
Yeah.
still deal with many daily challenges, I think,
Yep.
as low vision individuals.
Yep.
But I think when you plug it in, particularly with other applications as well, and look at, what are the integrations, like you said, it's a companion, an assistant. It can work with simple language. Like that can just, the opportunities are endless, I think,
Yep.
there in terms of how it can
There
benefit.
are and there are so many examples of this. What we're talking about in this specific case is digital AI, like whether it's apps, things on our phone, on our
Hmm.
computer, on our browser,
Hmm.
which we all use to do work and communicate with people, whether they are colleagues or loved one at home.
Hmm.
But you and I live in San Francisco, and we have embodied AI. We have
Hmm.
cars that
Yes.
drive themselves,
Yes.
and it blows my mind every time I sit in those cars. And my experience of having spoken to so many people within the blind and low vision community, they really stress and talk about the fact that now they have the ability to not wait for someone to drive them somewhere. Of course, they had Uber, but or other services, but they did have safety concerns,
Hmm.
and they had all of these reasons why they weren't feeling comfortable enough to kind of take a ride share. But now they have an unlock where a car drives itself, shows up at your doorstep, and
Yeah.
can take you to different places. If you think about the independence unlock that someone has who might have a condition like visual impairment and they might be
Mm.
stuck at home
Yeah.
for all these reasons, but now they essentially have agency and independence to travel. How cool is that?
It's amazing. And I don't know about you. I mean, I've had low vision, all my life. And so I've never been able to drive and I've never been able to own my own car. But just that opportunity to not only take those rides now, but just thinking about the potential that we know is coming, that we'll be able to own our own vehicles at some point, that,
Yeah.
we can take our own rides. We can then probably lease that vehicle out or rent it out through
Yep.
rideshare companies when we're not using it. It can even be like a revenue stream opportunity. In
Yep.
addition to, we get to have our own car, something
Yep.
that many people in the community have never been able to do.
Yep.
And that's just such an opportunity. And I think, and I understand, the perspective as from someone who's sighted, who's driven their entire life, right? Who giving up that control and kind of trust. And anytime something goes wrong, right, it
Yep.
makes the news. It's a big headline with an
Yep.
autonomous vehicle.
Yep.
But the reality is, like, it's saving lives, it's saving time, it's
Yep.
a very safe technology.
Yep.
Like anything, there's bugs, there's been issues, of course, but it's so exciting. I mean, just
It's
on my way
incredible.
over here, I encountered a Zoox vehicle. I encountered a Waymo out front. I do take Waymo often as well, and it's
Yep.
it's amazing.
And just talking about the idea of, like, yes, there is fear. And I think in a lot of ways, uh the concern that I have is when is really people not being exposed to it early enough. Because I don't think the problem is AI. I think the problem is the AI access being unequal.
Mm. Hmm.
And both the firstly the access, and second is the know-how and the training around that. Even though a lot of these tools have become fairly simple to use,
Hmm. Hmm.
I think putting the word out there that you want to get in early.
Hmm.
Some of these tools seem like toys,
Hmm.
but we are internally seeing the improvements that have happened in certain domains. And
Hmm.
specifically speaking, uh, what we've seen in coding. And it's
Hmm.
a very, even though it might seem, like I said, it might seem a little like a little distant thing for a lot of people in terms of like, I don't know what coding is and I don't know how it's going to affect my life. But what we saw happening in coding
Hmm.
has to be a really big indicator of what's coming in many other fields,
Hmm.
which is that as programmers, even 2 to 3 years ago, we used to spend a lot of time actually writing the code.
Hmm.
And now, even within our organizations, the vast majority of code is written by AI agents.
Hmm.
And we are almost just orchestrators
Hmm.
and managers
Yeah.
of these AI agents. Of course, as humans, the buck stops at us.
Hmm.
It's our responsibility. If something goes wrong, we are still to be blamed for it.
Hmm.
But we are letting go more and more of the control to the AI systems.
Hmm.
And it's a very strange feeling. It's a
Yeah.
strange feeling because you spent the first 2 to 3 decades of your life training on something, and the thing that you've trained on now happens by itself. And what you realize is that uh, the core skill set that is needed is just the ability to kind of learn and adapt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if something like an AI agent can come and do my job much better than I can and make much lesser mistakes, is not sleepy, is not cranky, doesn't have mood swings,
Yeah.
does not get sick, uh, you very and it's doing such a good job and it can work 24/7. So then the
Hmm.
question is, uh, almost stopping it and trying to control it would be the wrong decision.
Hmm.
Instead, learning how to use this as a tool
Hmm.
and and kind of learn how to operate it
Hmm.
is the real skill set. And when you translate that into different fields, whether it be accounting,
Hmm.
marketing, sales,
Hmm.
I almost don't care what your job is,
Hmm.
but you should be exploring AI tools, and it doesn't even matter what these tools are. Pick up a tool, integrate it into your workflow, play with it,
Try
and
it.
over
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
things will fall in place.
Yeah, and things have shifted, like you were saying. Instead of developers having to focus on just coding and writing the code, now it's more about kind of writing good prompts and like how do you phrase things, how do you format them? Because it does feel in some ways sometimes like a little bit of a magic box too with some of the
Yeah.
AI tools, right? Like even though there are best practices now on what to do, but sometimes like even if you put in or follow like specific prompt guidelines and things like that, the outputs you get still vary and there
Yeah.
are still like differences and you have to keep like massaging it and there's little nuances. And so it has shifted very much from the coding skill set, which is still important,
Yep.
but now it's like more on the prompt side and the input side. And also what you were saying too, it made me reflect a little bit on my career, because at Lighthouse I've been here for about 5 years and I have shifted more into the management side too. So
Mhm.
it kind of reminded me your experience with coding is my experience a little bit in moving up and working more in management, because initially you're more at the ground level,
Yeah.
like fundamentally doing the thing on the day to day.
Yeah.
And then when you go into management, it's more about kind of helping others. You're more of a facilitator at that
Yes.
point.
Yes.
And I think working with AI is, it benefits you to have that coding skill set, and to be a developer is definitely useful like when you're working with AI,
Yep.
but it's not required. It's more about the facilitation and that understanding
Yep.
there.
This is a great segue to talk about upskilling,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? All of these tools are available, uh, and would love to kind of understand uh, how you would communicate to the community in terms of what upskilling even means today,
Hmm.
right? Like, what does it mean to get better at something so that you have the right kind of opportunities? And in many ways, it does feel like it's a little bit of a level playing field because all
Hmm.
of us are figuring out this AI stuff for the first time.
Yeah.
It's not like there are really experts who've kind of known this for many decades, right?
Yeah.
And
Not even good playbooks really out there on what to do. Like
yeah,
there's things like people write things, but there's no like kind of Bible of AI, so to speak. It's just
absolutely. We are all
yeah.
figuring this out, and we want to be early so that we can learn things. So how should we think about upskilling with both keeping both the community
Hmm.
knowing that unemployment is so large
Hmm.
and knowing that there are these new opportunities which sometimes may feel like threats,
Yes.
but it's a perception thing. It's about how we perceive it. Would love to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
Definitely. Yeah, I think there's a lot to kind of unpack here, with AI. I think a really important thing is that for the community, like we don't want the community to be on the sidelines and kind of left out, right? And that's been often the case with a lot of technology development and accessibility. And, it's something you hear a lot in the space, right? That it's an afterthought, it's done at the end, there's never budget, it's not done at the beginning and integrated. There's this whole shift left movement. I mean, there's so many things you hear in the industry, right? On like what are the best practices, but a lot of it is very true. And the reality is, a lot of it is kind of left out. Like historically, a lot of products and tools are kind of built mainstream for a certain type of user.
Hmm.
Our community is often left out or on the sidelines, right? And so,
Yeah,
even though AI is fast paced, off to the races every day, getting better, 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 but at the same time, it's very much still at the beginning. Like
yeah,
it's still a perfect time to jump in, to play with these tools, to
yeah,
learn them,
yeah,
to understand, how can they benefit your daily work? What are the issues with them? What are the challenges? And I think those are some of the things we're starting to uncover and working together. Like, what are the opportunities where these tools can help the community?
yeah,
What are the challenges the community is facing with current tools? How
yeah,
can this kind of like bridge that gap, right?
yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this comes down to the work that we're starting and hopefully can continue to do in looking for opportunities for the community to even be better connected with developers, like whether it's
yeah,
here at South Park Commons or other spaces around SF where this development's happening, to make sure the community is at the table and can share their
yeah,
perspectives,
yeah.
because this is kind of the still the ground zero. This is the
It
early
is.
days.
It is.
But it's an exciting opportunity, I think,
Yeah.
for things. And to so yeah, I don't know. I think we need to find what are those opportunities, what are those pathways, and maybe we can be kind of the leading force behind some of that here in the area in
No,
Silicon Valley.
absolutely. Uh, like when I think about when I think about uh, these skills that kind of people need to learn, I think the most important thing is to just get started.
Hmm. Hmm.
Pick any AI tool.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, if you're looking for one, yeah, you can go to OpenAI's tools. You can use Claude's tool. There's a
Hmm.
tool called Claude Cowork.
Hmm.
It's a simple, nice interface. It's not going to be the last tool that you're using, but it's a great tool to sort of get started.
Hmm.
And it's really trying to understand how these different tools allow you to access things that you couldn't access earlier, which
Hmm.
is the core concept within accessibility. And multimodality has become a huge thing.
Hmm.
So if you just to kind of explain multimodality, so much of information used to exist in single modes. So
Hmm.
you can either read text, or you can like you have to like look at an image, or you can look at a PDF. But for people within different communities who can't access a certain modality because of a disability of certain sorts,
Hmm.
you couldn't magically just turn it into a different modality. So
Hmm.
if you just had to look at an image, you couldn't get the image read out to you very easily.
Hmm.
You had to read a pile of documentation. You couldn't just get someone to read out the documentation. And so with the advent of these kind of cross modality intelligence coming in, your weakness doesn't have to stay a weakness anymore.
Hmm. Hmm.
It doesn't mean that everything is solved,
Hmm.
but the tools are getting much better.
They are, and again, like you were saying, it doesn't excuse, tools not being built well, not being accessible, or having good user experiences, right? But these tools can close the gap, and they can allow for different ways to engage, and like you said, the multimodal approach. Like oftentimes you're kind of stuck within one modality, things aren't working, they're not accessible, you don't really know where to turn, maybe you abandon the experience, or you need outside support. But now there are many more options, and that does benefit really every user at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I think for our community, it gives you that flexibility to use voice input, for example, as well as with voice output, or switch to text, as needed,
Yeah.
dictation, those kind of things. Being
Yeah.
able to go back and forth, and that user preference is something that is hard to build because you're kind of building for many other user types in mind. But it
Yes.
does build a much better product at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It gives users a lot of choice.
Yeah.
So that, because I think blindness is a spectrum. And I know from my experience on any given day, the tools that I need, the settings that I prefer, the modalities I prefer, they do vary and change based on situation, based on my mood, my energy
Yeah.
level. Like that all impacts my level of vision for that
Yeah.
given day.
Yeah.
And it really is a spectrum. It's not just, okay, you have this condition, you have this level of vision, therefore you need these type of tools. That's
Yeah.
not really at all the case.
Yep.
Even two people with the same eye condition have many different, preferences on what
Yep.
they prefer.
And so if you can, if so, like we can absolutely envision this future where you have a set of tools that behave a certain way for you,
Mhm.
based on your condition and your preference and the work that you have to get done. And I have the same thing, and we communicate, we get stuff done, but we don't even know about each other's disabilities because it never shows up,
Yeah.
and that would
Yeah.
be fantastic.
Yeah, a tool that can learn about you. What are your preferences? What are your needs? What are the things you like? It remembers those things. It adapts effectively.
Yep.
Yeah, and it allows you to get done the tasks and things that you aspire to do in a more effective way.
Yep.
And it's not a limiting factor; it's a supporting factor.
Uh, this brings us to an important question of what do you think needs to change in order for the adoption to increase within our community? There are obviously, AI is has become such a buzzword that you can almost see it in every aspects of
Mhm.
society, including within the blind and low vision community. Whether you listen to podcasts within our communities, or you listen to if you visited CSUN, which is a
Yes.
big conference, AI is everywhere.
It is, yeah. It was the
But
hottest topic as always, this last couple of years. It's
yes, but do you think the adoption is is matching the buzz, especially within the community? And how do you think that can improve?
Yeah, I think I'm seeing a lot of screen reader providers, developers, and other companies start to incorporate more AI, into their products and tools, right? So that's one kind of pathway that can further benefit. But and then I think there is more of an opportunity for people from the community to be involved in early testing of these products, to try them out more, and see what are those. I mean, I think you made a really good point around just being willing to try them, being willing to test them. I myself am not a full-time screen reader user. I do use like spoken content tools. I know how to use screen readers. My team at Lighthouse tests with them, but I'm not a full screen reader user. So I think having that perspective, especially for our community, is really important with these tools. Like which ones are actually the best with screen readers, and also, there's an opportunity, I think, with these tools to improve the screen reader experience. I think when you talk to, from my experience, a lot of people from the outside of the community, when they look at screen reader tools, they're like, "Oh, these tools are clunky. They're not that effective.
Yeah.
Like they seem very old school." But then when you talk to people within the community that
Yeah.
use them,
Yeah.
they become power users. They know how to use these
Yeah.
tools. There are quirks and features. There are inefficiencies,
Yeah.
but they are very good tools. And it's not as if we need someone from the outside to kind of come in and build the perfect tool that's going to
Right.
replace screen readers and solve all the problems. But I think there's a big opportunity to augment that screen reader experience, to improve it,
Right.
to work with the community to make it better. And AI is really a big piece of that,
Right.
with the multimodalities, with different use cases. And then we get into like agentic, like what could it do on your behalf,
Right.
with your permission.
Right.
So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but I see that as a big opportunity, and I really hope our community can be deeply involved in that
Yep.
process,
No,
with
I
different
it
developers.
it that resonates a lot. Something that I think about a lot uh, is that for a lot of members within the community, firstly, let me go back to your previous point. I was someone who looked at screen readers and I felt they weren't up to the mark because I wasn't a screen reader
Yeah.
user.
I think we had
And
that conversation. We were kind of going back and forth, and I did agree with you to an extent, but I've heard just so many people in the community really defend screen readers and say, like this is our tool. We like these tools. They do work, and they
absolutely.
get very good at using them. And
Yes. And what I realize especially is that the spectrum matters, right?
yeah.
When users have been blind for all their life or most of their life, and they've learned screen readers very early in life, they are I call them screen reader ninjas.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
that's their user interface. They're used to that. That's how they use that with every technology, and it's just second
Absolutely.
nature at that point.
And when you kind of show them other tools that are text to speech or speech to text, they all seem slow
Yeah, yeah.
compared to how fast they're able to kind of move, right? The other thing really is it's both a a, a, a compliment uh, uh, to the screen reader to some extent in terms of reliability,
Mhm,
even though it doesn't do everything perfectly all the time. I think for most tasks, users know what is reliable and what is
mhm,
not reliable,
mhm.
and they work around it.
Yeah.
And that gives them some level of predictability. And when it comes to a lot of the new AI tools, one of the major problems is that you cannot completely trust these tools today
Mhm,
because of their probabilistic nature.
mhm,
These tools sometimes hallucinate, they make up stuff,
mhm.
and even though a lot of that is improving really fast
It is. Yeah.
for the community, especially say you connect your email to ChatGPT or something,
Mhm,
and if things don't turn out the right way, it's very hard for you to make it your daily driver
mhm.
because unlike a sighted person, it takes a lot more for you to know if something went wrong.
Yes,
And
it
if
does.
someone doesn't come and give you a reliability stamp saying, I've got this covered,
Mhm,
and if the product itself tells you that it may make mistakes at times, it may give you some level of hesitation
mhm,
to jump into it. And so at least my message on a lot of this is uh, uh, go slow.
mhm,
Don't like
mhm,
start immediately, but expand slowly.
mhm,
Learn the nuances and the limitations of these products
mhm,
as you use them,
mhm.
and slowly go to a point where you're giving it more access as you start seeing value.
Mhm.
This way, you don't end up sort of giving all access to everything and then end up burning your fingers.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that will happen, but
But
it
it could.
could
Yeah,
happen, and we
could.
don't want people to. It's a lot of pain for our community if something really goes wrong and they may need help, and help may not be easily available.
Mhm,
And so it's something that I've noticed is a little bit of a hesitation
mhm,
why people want to stay away from it. And so I think the answer on this is actually a middle ground where I
mhm,
think people should jump in, but at the same time do it do it periodically or give it access periodically to
mhm.
different things so that you don't end up in some trouble that you can't get out of.
Definitely. No, that's great advice and makes total sense. The other thing you made me think of when we were talking about upskilling and like what are some of the gaps and things. I think one of the issues is that these large language models are like they're trained on a lot of parameters, right? They're very broad in general in a lot of cases, but they're not necessarily specifically trained on data and needs, from the community, right? Like they're not that well like they're usually trained on like WCAG principles and general things, but they're not that trained on like usability and specific needs, of the community, and things related directly to accessibility and usability from the blind and low vision perspective. And I think that's a big opportunity, for our community to hopefully get more connected with developers to make sure that we are involved in that training,
Yeah.
and that is incorporated into the models. And maybe it's like not in the maybe it's not as easily doable in like the general models, but in like smaller models or more, models that are trained like for specific tasks or tools, for the community, that it is trained like on our perspectives, because that's often left out. And I think that could be an opportunity to, and maybe we can help facilitate more of that as well between developers and the community.
No, absolutely, and shamelessly plugging in my product at this point in time.
Yes.
But that was the core intent. The core intent
Mhm.
was we designed Lumin to be uh, uh, at least Lumen aspires to be the best product from a voice productivity standpoint for the blind and low vision community. And our deep, and which is why we partnered with you and Lighthouse
Yes.
at the inception of our journey, because we wanted to work with the community and co-design. Because our core thesis, which I think a lot of other companies should try and adopt, because we see this in the results, is that when you design for accessibility, you have to end up making design choices that may seem very tough
Hmm.
in the beginning,
Hmm.
and because the level of reliability that a blind person or someone with ADHD needs
Hmm.
is a lot higher.
Hmm.
And so when you end up building products with the community with that level of uh, uh, design restriction, so anytime we are trying to think about adding a feature, the natural instinct for the teams are like, why don't you just add a button?
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
obsess over the fact that
Hmm.
that may cause more hurdles, and hence we don't want to do it.
Hmm.
And that
Less is
though
more sometimes, right? And just taking that more simplistic
less is
design
more, and
approach.
the more important thing is that it is the job of the software to take away the stress on behalf of the user,
Hmm. Hmm.
and the software, or in this case the AI agent or the AI companion, works for the user, and it shouldn't be the other way around.
Hmm.
And sometimes when you use software, it feels like you're working for the software and it's not the other way around, and you have to put in a lot of effort to even get something done. And many times designing accessibility first and thinking outwards,
Hmm.
which is pretty nicely described within the concept of curb cut effect, is actually true, because
Hmm.
then you end up making the tools so simple that even sighted users and everyone else would
Hmm.
like tools that are really convenient and easy to use. Like,
Yes.
and in a world where more and more people are getting people are getting older, and hence people are going to start losing their eyesight.
Hmm.
The number of people on earth with vision related problems is going to unfortunately increase
It is.
and
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
decrease. We also have a myopic epidemic in younger children. So considering all of these things, uh, uh, an important point to add is uh, disability is a matter of when.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you live long enough,
You'll
you
encounter
are
something.
going to have certain types of disabilities, and investing in universal accessible design by working with these communities will actually end up benefiting larger humanity in many ways.
It will, and for developers too, it increases their addressable market too. It just really opens up the
Yeah.
product to many more users. And like you said, I mean, as people get older too, oftentimes, particularly in the AI world where things are moving so fast, and older individuals are not always as tech savvy and don't always have those technology skills. And then when they become blind, they don't, there's already this barrier of technology, and they see it as an even bigger barrier. But the reality is the tools, when designed well, can be very user friendly, easy. You can use multimodalities, use voice. You can do those simple tasks, and it does require some training and
Yeah.
things, of course, but it can really open up those possibilities. And we have seen that at Lighthouse with, when I was doing a lot of training, particularly with older individuals who are new to blindness, that they often just want that connection. They want to be able to use a tool to send a text with dictation, just so they can connect with their family, make a FaceTime call, those kind of things. And I think these models and these tools can help make that experience more user friendly.
Yeah.
Because that screen reader experience, like you mentioned, if you're born blind, you learn those tools, you're really good at them, they're really powerful. But if you learn them later on, there can be a steeper learning
Yeah.
curve.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of opportunity. I am wondering, like, when we think about AI agents and agentic capabilities of AI. What do you see as the kind of opportunities out there with these tools? I know this is a hot topic too. Like, what can
Yeah.
these tools really do to increase productivity, and for our community? And I think we can think about it too within the lens of Lumen too as a product, like what it's
Yeah.
doing.
I think AI agents are moving from uh, just doing small automations to
Mhm.
having the ability to kind of do certain jobs end to end. And what I mean by a job is I don't necessarily mean completely taking over a person's job.
Mhm.
What I mean is if you want to do basic accounting, if you want to do basic marketing,
Mhm.
which really involves, hey, creating a website, you want to create assets like images for marketing, you want to put up an ad, you want the
Mhm.
ad to run. You can do a lot of these things using an AI agent.
Mhm.
And what that allows you to do in many ways is, and what I would really urge people to do is, if you're a marketer, learn how to leverage AI tools for marketing so that
Mhm.
you can do your job better.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because that's where the new set of skill sets is going to be. The person who's going to be hired
Mhm.
tomorrow, whether you're a lawyer
Mhm.
or whether you're an accountant or whether you are a marketer,
Mhm.
the ones who will be very valuable will be the ones who know how to work with AI tools,
Mhm.
because what they will be able to do with those tools is just produce better and faster outcomes for
Mhm.
the employers.
Mhm.
Now, whether that is something that you're doing working for someone else
Mhm.
or you're doing it for yourself as a small business owner, in both situations you're going to be ending up being much more productive,
Mhm.
which will essentially translate into you being able to do a really good job very quickly and for a much lower cost.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the ones who follow this paradigm will end up overshooting the ones who don't.
Mhm.
And just to kind of add to this, this is another reason why I think it's a very exciting moment for people within the blind and low vision community, especially the ones who feel like they're always left behind. There are many people on earth who still don't fully grasp what's happening in the AI landscape.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I would really shout out to everyone within the community and
Uh-huh.
tell them
Uh-huh.
that while everyone else is on the fence waiting, we should jump
Yeah.
in and
Dive
really
into the
become
deep
expert
end.
and
Yeah.
leverage
Yeah.
this to our own advantage.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's smart. It's an opportunity to, because this can level the playing field, right? This is a chance to kind of get ahead and be ready. Because I mean, there's so much talk over AI destroying jobs or jobs going away because of AI, right? But you made a good point, and I haven't thought about it in that way. That like the task of marketing or of being a lawyer, like those things aren't going away. They're
Yeah.
just being done
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
You know, different tools, different ways of doing it,
Yeah.
in aspects of those jobs that like, you know, designing an ad campaign or digital images, like for designers, yeah, they're good at that, but it's very time intensive. They're not things that can often be done quickly,
Yeah.
and now they can.
Yeah.
So that is really the shift.
Yeah.
And you raise a good point. Yeah, this is a time to try to get really good at these tools.
Yeah.
I get, yeah.
We should remember that even 50 years ago, they were building full of accountants with pen and paper doing accounting.
Yeah.
And all of that today can be essentially replaced with a single instant of Microsoft Excel,
Yes.
which will be much faster, much more accurate, and more intuitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in some ways, that sounds scary, but in other ways, today we've normalized it,
Yeah.
right? Like
Everyone learned Excel. Everyone got good. Well,
everyone,
you know, maybe not the, it depends on your level of proficiency, but you had to
yeah,
learn it to some degree to
you
be able
had
to
to
do
learn it.
those
And so
tests.
the ones who jumped on that bandwagon probably did incredibly well. They
Hmm.
probably opened accounting shops
Hmm.
or accounting firms, which were able to be much more lucrative than getting 50 people in a building. And
Yep.
we are in a similar inflection point
Hmm.
where instead of having to hire a team of 10 or 20 people to build some software to build a website or to even start something, an individual with an idea and some AI tools for tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars
Hmm.
can start something
Start a whole
and see
company.
whether it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
And what do you have to lose? 50 or 100 bucks and some time. And worst case, you'll come out of it having learned something that is going to be valuable.
Some new
So
skills. Yeah.
we are living in a time. I'd urge people to think through the fact that we're living in a time where if you use these tools the right way, you're going to be able to get a head start on many things,
Hmm.
and that
Hmm.
is where the real opportunity is, rather
Hmm.
than waiting for things to get too perfect and stay on the sidelines.
Definitely. I think one other challenge is, and with your company with Lumen, like you're, as someone in the community, and you're also building it, with the community along the way, right? Which is the best approach to take. But for larger companies, I think sometimes the challenge is, as people are in the community are playing around with these tools, they're getting good at them, but they're finding accessibility bugs, usability issues, things like that, reporting those and flagging them. I mean, there are often channels to do that, but sometimes it's hard to kind of get that attention. And so
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any like guidance or anything we should think about of like what are those channels, like how can we help those things kind of come to the forefront, as people are testing, because
Yeah.
oftentimes they are going to run into challenges, to help improve things.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of be loud about some of these things, whether
Hmm.
it's on X or other channels. I
Hmm.
completely understand that not everyone likes to kind of publicize these things, and
Sure.
people sometimes are shy and
Hmm.
reserved. But talking about it helps, because a lot of the times I don't even think the companies fully understand what's going on,
Hmm.
and sometimes it needs to kind of bubble up, because the reality of the fact is that large companies care about the like large global populations, especially if you
Hmm.
look at any of the big tech companies.
Yes.
And so within those, communities like ours are much smaller,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so sometimes the voices can't be heard as loud,
Yes.
and so we should try and be a little louder.
Hmm.
But on
Hmm.
the other hand, I would actually say that we need to find ways of finding alternative ways of helping ourselves.
Hmm.
Some of it is just being curious, and there are incredible communities on Reddit,
Hmm.
on Facebook, where there is very active dialogue, and I would
Hmm.
really urge people to kind of go in and like see what's going on, like what are the different tools that people are talking about,
Yes.
how are people addressing these challenges. And third, in a world where uh, uh, it sounds like it's out there, but I would urge people to. There's this new term. It's called vibe coding. Check it out.
Hmm.
It's coding used to be this structured process, and you need to know a lot of logic and programming languages, etc. Vibe coding is just coding with English,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I would absolutely urge people to just search for vibe coding and find a few platforms and just try creating something, try
Hmm.
creating a website, try creating small little personal apps that you can do different things with. Is it a complete solution? It's not. But instead of just waiting for large companies to kind of do things,
Yeah.
I think we live in a world where the tools have become easy enough that uh, we can hunt for newer things, and
Hmm.
uh, we can actually take matters in our own hands and like
Yeah.
try different things.
Yeah, I guess my question there is like with that output, yeah, how accessible is it, right? And I guess some of that comes down to like how the models are building, what the source code is, what language they're using, and yeah, and I mean, I think that's something that would need to be kind of tested out as well, right? And
Yeah.
but you do raise a point too about big tech and big companies. I think part of it is that a lot of times there is that intention and understanding, but implementing things at scale can always be hard, right? So, and like where do things fall in
which
priority
is
and
which is why
roadmaps? And
we're doing what we're doing,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
we expect certain things from these big companies, but things everyone has their own agendas, and so if we want to see this fixed, then we should take matters in our own hands and get it done. I think on that note, would love to kind of hear some your closing thoughts on what do you want, like we've spoken so much about lean into the opportunity, try different tools,
Mhm.
upskill and up level yourself. Any other thoughts that you'd love to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I think I really, I mean, I personally am very passionate about employment, helping people in the community find those pathways, those opportunities. So we try to work through a lot of different partnerships to make that happen. Some of them are even with big tech companies that have really, taken an interest in, apprenticeships and opportunities for blind and low vision, people that have tech skills that are looking for entry level opportunities. And yeah, I think those things are great. We're trying to push a lot more of those partnerships and and just try to open those doors and reduce some of those barriers, for people to kind of get those opportunities, particularly when they do have skills, but they're facing the barriers, of the process, the job process, the application, the interview process.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm very encouraged by what I'm seeing in the space and in working with you and a lot of other developers that are very much on the forefront of the AI tools and also even the wearables, like trying to incorporate more AI tools that are accessible to make wearables even more usable, for the community.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm very excited about. Just what are those opportunities around wearables and other devices and applications, really to increase the overall productivity, and accessibility for the community. I think, we touched on it a bit, but I think there is just such an opportunity to improve the overall kind of screen reader experience, different ways of accessing technology. And I know, the work you're doing with Lumin is very much getting at that of, how can you build a really helpful assistant that's built, for the community, by the community, that can take on a lot of different tasks. And that work is really exciting. I think that's what we need to push for. And yeah, I
Yeah.
look forward to building this podcast with you. I think it can be great to
Yeah.
really cover employment, cover technology. I think there's a lot of potential to bring other developers in and
Yeah.
guests on different topics and tools, and yeah, see how we can better connect the community with the developers like yourself on the ground level that are building these tools on a daily basis.
Absolutely. I just want to end on the fact that I think the next decade, uh, of course, I think is very exciting for many reasons, but I
Mhm.
think it's incredibly exciting for accessibility and assistive technologies. And I think and we've spoken about this. I think really well designed assistive technologies just feel like consumer technologies.
Mhm.
Like there's
Mhm.
no reason why it has to be, because the whole point of technology is to assist. So why is it called assistive technologies?
Yeah.
But that being said, I think the tools for our communities will heavily evolve.
Mhm.
Uh, while there'll be some form of like a screen reader and a magnifier and all of these kind of tools, I think we will find a whole new range of tools that will come up that
Mhm.
we don't even know yet. Interfaces that are purely voice that you can control,
Mhm.
and I think the fact that uh, we live in an age where science fiction starts feeling like reality
That's yeah.
is very exciting
Mhm.
because it gives a lot of hope to the community. The tools are only going to get better, it's only going to
Mhm.
improve. And so leaning in is the right thing to do.
Yeah. And everyone will be augmenting their abilities in different ways, right? It's not just
Yeah.
like, oh, you have a disability, so therefore you need this assistive technology to help you. It's kind of like, no, everyone's augmenting with technology, with
Right.
tools,
Absolutely.
enhancing their experience. And yeah, and I think the other benefit there is that we're seeing a lot of this. Because the barriers to entry are lowering, like we talked about around AI tools and development, it is putting a lot of downward pressure on price too in
Right.
in the space,
Right.
which has always been very prohibitive in terms of wearables and devices. Like AT devices have
Yeah.
always been historically thousands of dollars. And
Yeah.
now with Meta Ray Bans and other startups that are building even like just smart glasses, the pressure on that market, just a few years ago, the standard devices were a couple $1,000s a pair,
Right.
and now they're in the hundreds and going down. So
Right.
I think we're seeing that across the landscape,
Yeah.
which is super exciting as well.
It's incredibly exciting time. I had super fun talking to you as always.
Likewise, Sriram.
Excited about
Yeah,
doing the next one.
same here. I'm so glad we're doing this. I think it'll be cool, and yeah, just to see where we'll go. I think our conversations are always engaging, and the possibilities are endless. And yeah, look forward to continuing our partnership and just helping our community.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, thank you, Sriram.